Welcome, everybody, to the Passion Within. We've got a really special guest with us today, Genevieve Newton. Now, for you guys that don't know her, she has had this amazing journey to get where she is today. And we're going to just jump right in with Genevieve because I want to get you all to know who she is and why she is such an amazing person. So, Genevieve, I'm not going to let you introduce yourself so much as let's jump into who Genevieve is and go back a couple of days. You're in the East Coast now, but that's not where you started. You started out on the prairies. Tell us a little bit about that.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am currently transplanted over here on the East Coast of Canada. Like you said, I've been out here since the summer of 2021. Previous to that, I was living out in Alberta in the Sundre area. I worked for a few different facilities in Alberta before I decided to make my move out east.
Okay, Genevieve, let's go further back, young lady.
Okay.
Let's go back to your childhood. Where did you actually start out? I think it was Saskatchewan, right?
Yes. So I was born and raised in Saskatchewan, Canada. I was born in Saskatoon and moved around a lot, but mostly grew up around Regina and southern Saskatchewan. And
Okay.
So I started out. My adventure with plants really starts out as a young person. It's very strongly in my family. I used to spend a lot of summers with my grandpa, and he was just really into horticulture and gardening. And so it was fun. It was cool to watch things grow. It was cool to see how he did things. And my parents were both into gardening. My dad, too. Actually, my dad probably more than my mom. And so, but as a teenager, right, like you just weren't into gardening and it wasn't a priority and it was hard work and it was weeding. And so I wasn't as much into it. And then got back into it again in my 20s when I, started living in my own homes. And like, I've always really loved flowers. And so I've always just had sort of a obsession with growing my own and just sort of, right from seed. And so that kind of just expanded when I owned my own home in Edmonton, Alberta. I was like, hey, well, I own a home now, so I have to have a garden. And I didn't particularly love it at first because it is a lot of hard work. But once I started seeing success, it was just like I was hooked.
So you started out more growing a flower garden and then maybe some vegetables, etc. And that's where you connected with Mother Earth basically and found your
trees. I
love for
loved
this.
trees. Like I used to prune trees before I even knew how to do it. My partner.
Well, I don't know if that's a good thing for the trees, though.
I just was like, I felt like I needed. I was just wanted to be in it, So,
So did you climb trees as a little girl? Was that part of the fascination with trees, or what?
If I can think back again to when I spent summers at my grandpa's house, there was a particular tree in the backyard that I would climb, and I loved reading back then, and I still do, but like I read less for pleasure now. But back then I would go to the library and get all these books, and then I would go into my tree and just read for hours. And so I've always been really connected to trees. Yes.
Oh, I love that. So you find a nice little crook in the tree and kick back as a little girl.
Yeah, it's still there to this day.
Oh, that's fantastic. Have you been back and climbed up that tree lately?
I have not climbed it, but I've seen it as recently as when I made my trip across Canada. We stopped through and I saw my grandpa's old house. And
oh, that's fantastic. That bringing back the childhood memories brings back a real smile and something in your heart to reconnect like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been really good.
Well, fantastic. So this is where your love for plants and everything really got started. And then, but you haven't always been in plants. You took a really wild turn and got into helping people doing social work.
Yeah.
How the hell did that happen, young lady?
I'll tell you. When I was in high school, I graduated high school in 1996.
You're
And
young.
back then, I'm not sure if they still do this, but you used to have to take these like job placement tests, and it
Hmm.
would tell you what you should go into, and most people followed them. So I remember taking this test, and it was like the two options I had was social worker or nature preserver, right? Like forest ranger, that type of thing or whatever. And I thought that's maniac. Like there, I wasn't connected yet. So I like, didn't even have that on my plate. Like no fucking way. So I went into social work.
Oh yeah, and it's a desk job. You're around your friends, and you're not living in the bush.
No, exactly. I wasn't ready to be wild yet. So I started out by, I did my social work degree in Regina at the U of R. I did half of it there and then I transferred over to the U of A. So I transitioned to Alberta when I was in my early 20s.
Okay.
And so when I graduated from social work, I just kept doing that all while having gardening as a hobby. I spent 18 years actually helping other people and helping the people in my community. I've done lots of different jobs in social work from running group care to um, being a support person for young adults and mothers, mostly mothers. I'm very drawn to those that give life and early intervention and providing the skills for people when they're trying to raise kids rather than coming in
Right.
afterwards and reacting to the mess. It's a good idea to prevent these things, right? So my
Always
favorite
helps, right?
my favorite my favorite job title was always being a support person, and that basically is teaching people how to live, a pretty normal life, raise your kids, don't follow the same cycle that you maybe are used to, what's familiar. People grow up in all sorts of terrible conditions, but that doesn't mean that has to be how you live your life. And
Yeah.
so I like to be that person that assists. That was that bridge, I guess, for those kids that were 15 or 16 years old and didn't know where to go or where to turn. Most of
Yeah.
them pregnant, already had a couple kids maybe. And so,
Oh,
yeah, maybe
geez.
I didn't
Yep.
help every one of those kids, but I know for sure that I've helped a few of them become really
Hmm.
positive, um, great adults, and so if I had a part in any of that, I'm just happy about that. And I remember in social work them saying, like, when we were in school, they're like, look around, and after 2 years in the field, you're going to be burnt out. So you need to know that. You need to recognize that. And I stayed in the field for 18 years, and I felt the
Holy.
burnout probably the last 5 years. And so it was
Right.
the last 5 years of my career where I sort of took the desk job and I was like, hey, my heart's just not in this anymore. I don't want to work harder for people than they're willing to work for themselves anymore.
Yeah.
I was done. And so um, weed came in there. So that was kind of where the transition, I was in a place of like, I was approaching 40, in a dead end job, not loving life. I had, I got sober from drugs and alcohol in 2012. So I'm 11 years sober from hard drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
Life was just so boring to me. And so I was white knuckling it a lot through the alcohol and stuff, if I'm to be honest. And I got struck down with colitis
Ooh.
in 2016, just some chronic ulcer stuff. And because of
Hmm.
my addiction issues, I didn't want to take the things that they were prescribing me, which was some pretty
Yeah.
hard narcotics. And they weren't wanting me to take them either. So
Then you had a good doctor.
I did. I had a really good doctor, but they were not marijuana friendly. So that was
Oh
difficult.
man.
Even in 2016 or prior to that, trying to get a medical marijuana prescription was a lot harder than it is now. And
Oh
that
yeah.
was only a few years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's kind of how it started, was that I delved into medicating myself for the colitis, because I remember taking that first joint. I've told this story before on different podcasts, but I was at a point in my life where my buddy was just like, smoke this weed. And I was like, I can't smoke this weed. The people in 12 step or the recovery people are just like, no, like if I smoke weed, I talked about it at a meeting and they said, if you smoke weed, you're not sober. And then, so you can really get wrapped up in that. But I did. I smoked that joint. It saved my life. I became hungry again. I started nourishing my body. I had lost over 100 pounds in about 6 months, and it was a trauma on my body. And
Mm-hmm.
so the weed helped me bring the life back to my body. And so I continued using it. It didn't send me into a spiral of cocaine and alcohol like everyone said it was going to. It
Yeah.
actually helped my recovery. And so I had already been abstaining from all drugs and alcohol at the time for 4 years before I decided to broach and bring marijuana in. So I never suggest people do what you got to do, but like I had some time behind me, but the marijuana added to the wellness part of me. And I wanted everyone to feel like I felt. I wanted to save the world with weed. I felt re-inspired, re-passionate, the same kind of
Yeah.
feelings I used to have when I started in social work. And I was like, wow, like, and that was before I even started growing it. I was
Mm-hmm.
teaching people how to infuse it. I was doing things on YouTube. I was just wrapped into like, because you couldn't find this stuff anywhere, even a few years
Yeah.
ago. Everyone was tight-lipped about it. So I was like, this is how you do it in the Instant Pot. This is how you do it in the slow cooker. This is how you do it if you don't want your neighbors to know. So I started out that the first podcast I ever did was with Shane from Cheap Home Grow, and it was on infusion and like it was awesome. That's my roots. But the
Oh,
weed got
fantastic.
really, really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me to medicate myself, I was also medicating other people that it was working for because I'm like, hey, this works for me. You should try it. And so more people were being medicated. At the time, too, my dog had been diagnosed with epilepsy.
Mm-hmm.
Kona, he was 4 or 5 at the time. And the vet had said something about CBD, and I didn't know that much about CBD at the time.
Right.
And so I started delving into it and looking it up. And just at the same amount of time where I decided I was going to start growing weed, because I thought I can grow flowers, I can grow vegetables. I'm not going to pay for weed anymore. I'm going to grow it. So
Yeah.
I legally grew the weed until I figured out how to get my ACMPR license.
Mm-hmm.
So for about a year and a half, because it wasn't easy to get back then. The doctor that gave me my prescription did not want me to grow it, because
Yeah.
back then it was all about sales, and all the people that own the cannabis clubs or whatever were sending you to Aurora or sending you to Organigram or whatever, right? Because they all have
Yeah.
deals with each other and partnerships. So they definitely don't want me to grow my own weed. They were like, no, you shouldn't do it. You'll fail. It's really hard. Like, no, just keep buying it. And I was like, no, I want you to sign this paperwork. And so I did finally get them to sign the paperwork. And the first things I did grow was the bag seed that I had and CBD for my dog.
Okay.
And
Well,
then
Lily's saying I used it for my dogs when they are in pain, as well as when they are making their transition. It makes for a smoother one, and it does.
yeah, it helped balance the effects that the hard narcotics had on his body, because he had a very severe case of epilepsy and he was a large
Yeah.
lab. He lived to be 14. He only passed away this year. And the doctors gave him a life sentence of 8 years, as they said he'd live that long, because the benzos are so hard on his liver that it would probably
Yeah.
take him out. But because I was balancing those side effects with CBD, I strongly believe, I don't have the science to prove it, but I know that was a big reason in how he lasted as long as he did, and good quality of life.
And that's the thing. It's the quality of life as much as anything else, and it's for us as well. Like you, by using marijuana, have gotten your quality of life back. You've gotten the joy back in your life. That's what I'm definitely hearing in your voice. And
Absolutely.
there's so many of us that is why we're taking cannabis. Isn't just because we want to get high. It's to give us back a life that we thought we'd lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I refound my passion. And when I started growing, the
A
passion
new
was
passion.
ignited even more. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. And this was in 2015, 2016.
Hmm.
And so as legalization started approaching, I was getting better at growing, right? So the two
Yeah.
years into it, I was doing things online. I was being mentored by multiple different people. I was already winning like little tiny awards. for like just journaling about my cannabis and writing about it and taking pictures of it, winning certain
Yeah.
things. And I really like that feeling too. So the competition piece. And so I started entering personal cannabis cups. I entered a homegrow competition and I got runner up. That was the first cup I ever entered in, I think, 2016 or 17.
Right on.
Yeah. And then I entered Hempfest Cup
Mm-hmm.
and won the first year I entered. I won, I can't remember exactly. It was like highest or best indica, I think is what I won.
Okay.
And I won second in top female grower in Canada. And then the next year I was coming back for first. So I came back and
Mm-hmm.
got first and second in the top female grower because I
Oh
had
no, that's bad. Okay,
two
one and two.
strains. I entered a CBD and it won first, and
Yeah.
the THC strain won me second. So because it was all blind, they had no idea it was the same person.
Yes, true, true. And like your shirt says, buy weed from women, because you guys want to grow the best medicine for us that most people ever could get their hands on.
Yeah, the thing about women is, buy weed from everyone. I support this brand because of supporting people of color in the weed industry, as well as women and other diversities within the weed industry. But I'm a big fan of grow your own weed, don't buy
Yeah.
it. As I work in the legal industry and it pays my bills, but
No, yeah,
there's a
isn't that
need
a
for that
contradiction
too.
of terms, as you're growing it, in the industry, but hey guys, no, just grow your own, right?
If you can and you want to, do it.
Yeah.
The industry is there for the people that can't or
Yeah.
don't have a want for it. So it's regulated. It's a regulated industry, a safe place for people to buy weed. You just have to be educated about the purchases that you make and where it's coming from, because different rules for
Mhm.
different fools. So you want to make sure you know what you're doing and what you're buying.
Well, and let's catch up to where you are now. Now you're a Stewart Farms in down east. I'm not sure exactly what province or city it is.
We're in St. Stephen, New Brunswick. We're
Okay.
literally we're a border town to Maine. So we border Calais, Maine. And so
Okay.
it's a hot spot for people to travel through. So we're very southern New Brunswick.
Well, and that's fantastic. But okay, we'll go jump back to where you started in your cannabis journey. I believe that was was it in Edmonton or Calgary that you started growing
Um, it was
commercially?
actually, yeah, commercially. So the first spot I went to was Acreage Farms, which is Piers, Alberta. It's close to Edmonton. I was living in Edmonton at the time. I did a field study there from a cannabis course that I took in Olds, Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I took that course because I felt like I needed something on my resume that wasn't social work, because I was very nervous about
Yeah.
transitioning my skills from social work or crisis management over to the industry of cannabis and business,
You're
nonprofits and
still
business.
in crisis management, though.
Oh
Okay,
man,
face it.
I walked into those facilities and was like, they need me. Like they need Jesus and me. Like I
Yep.
worked at Sundial for a year and I said, if you paid me $90,000 a year, I would be your Sundial social worker, because that place needs 5 social workers. There's so much going on in there. It's chaos.
Yeah,
So,
they
for
need to pay
example,
you
and that
double
Sundial's the
duty.
only place I've been that's big like that. So I
Yeah.
imagine they're all like that.
See, you should be getting paid for two different jobs because you're doing the social work and you're doing the growing.
Yes, exactly. Here at Stewart Farms, actually, and Tanner would agree, my boss, is that I'm probably 5 different jobs. So I do the
Yeah.
growing. I'm also marketing and media, head of sanitation, harvest, post harvest, micromanagement. Like I could divide these all up into several jobs for sure. But I love to live the life of chaos. And so just that, like I did in social work, I am on my toes all the time. Crisis management every day looks different. What you plan is not what happens. Like it's all stuff I know very
Yeah.
well, very
Yeah.
transferable. Never mind the people you need to counsel throughout the day. Here it's pretty cool because it's just a few people. And actually, there's 3 of us on the leadership team that come with human services backgrounds or in social work or otherwise. Yeah. So we have a pretty solid team as far as empaths.
Okay, sorry, am I a little loud, you guys? Sorry. I'll try to back off a little bit.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Well,
Sounds good on my
I
end.
I think Indica needs to turn his TV or stereo down a little bit because I'm trying not to be too loud on my soundboard. But anyway, so you started out in a normal, what people would consider normal growing field, and you were using salt based.
Yeah,
So
so at Acreage Farms, it was hydroponics. They were using Remo nutrients, which I use at home and love. As far as chemistry goes or salt, if I'm going to do hydro, I do mostly all organics now because it's just easier for me. And I can explain that as well, especially coming from hydroponics and being in love with hydroponics and salt and the control that you get with it and the mastery of that versus organics, where it's like the way I thought about it was so much more complicated. And now that I understand it, it's so much easier. So I did Acreage Farms, hydroponics, Sundial was hydroponics, and I was irrigation. I started doing irrigation at Sundial and then moved over to Candry, which is also near Sundre or Calgary, and did irrigation there and production coordination there, but also hydroponics. They were doing, I guess it was like organic inputs, but in a hydroponic vertical growing type commercial space.
okay, so you did vertical growing, and that's quite a bit different from most hydroponics. It's normally a one level. So explain a little bit more what the difference is between a vertical grow and a normal grow.
Right. So at Sundial, it's all tables, and they had a couple rooms that were vertically grown. So I did get a little bit of experience doing the irrigation in smaller vertical rooms. But once I went over to Candry, they had much larger vertical rooms in 3 tiers. So we were using scissor lifts and people who work in vertical know it's not easy at all labor wise. Like they are not meant for people to be working in there. It's a small space. And irrigation, I mean, I was at Candry when they started up their irrigation system. So everything is systemized and automated now, but I was with them through that entire learning curve of we used to get up on ladders and hand water these plants until we had our system worked out. I would send water to empty rooms and flood them. Like I've done, yeah, but you learn from it. I learned how to use the ozone out there, like a lot of technical machines. I learned a lot from my boss at the time. And I was really glad. At first I was very intimidated and nervous to work under this tradesman and like learn these things, but I'm so grateful that I spent the year there because I learned a lot. But yeah, vertical has lots of different microclimates. And so the other thing too with irrigation is gravity and how far you have to send the water up, down, like all these things matter. So it's a little bit more difficult to dial in tier to tier. Even you do the second tier is going to be different in the front than it is in the back, all of those things. So I was kind of ready to get out of that sort of factory setting. And so when Tanner got a hold of me to come out east, I was ready to make the move. And I had just started like learning about organics while I was at Candry because they were using organic inputs. And so I was starting to learn more about, why and how and that kind of thing there. And then I jumped on with Tanner and Stewart Farms. And I got one of the best gifts by moving out here, which is Kevin Jodry as my mentor.
Oh, so sweet.
So I've been very lucky to learn the organics from,
a master,
a real master, and he's such a great guy to work with, and he's really helped me a lot, not just with the organic stuff. I like because I check in with him every few months or whatever. We do a session. I have everything I need to ask him, and he can just or if I need something last minute, I text him, I get a hold of him, and he just gives me an answer, and then I can go research the rest. So I feel like we work at it together, and I love this mentorship relationship. He gives me the short answer, and then I just go and take it and fly. So it's been working really well. I have a couple of other friends from the States that I will reach out to and ask questions about organics, and then aquaponics. So
And that's the next step.
yeah, so it was like coming into all of that, working with living soil, and then also the aquaponics. So the aquaponics that we do here at Stewart Farms, we are one of 3 facilities in Canada that grows marijuana with fish poop.
That's a
And
nice way to put it. Yeah.
the other 2 places are Habitat, which is out in BC, and they use salmon, and then
Right.
Aqualitis, which is in Halifax, and they use koi. And we're here in St. Stephen, and we use Black Nile tilapia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they are, out of those 3, the easiest fish to take care of.
Well, and you're
um,
not actually like a true aquaponic system is set up so that everything works in a synchronicity of flow where the water comes from the fish into the plants and back to the fish. You
right.
guys have modified that, and I'm not sure if the other 2 have or not. But
No,
you
they're
guys
doing
aren't
it
doing
that
it in
way.
that way.
Yeah, so they're more, if you think about the way aquaponics and hydroponics are similar, that they would be doing it like that, right? So where it's being brought into the rooms. I believe, I haven't visited either place. I want to. But I believe the fish rooms are, the fish farms are separate from the plants, but I'm
Right.
not, I'd have to look at our system, the plant room and the fish farm is separate. So we have all the infrastructure for the recirculating system, as you just spoke about. But right now, we don't have, we're hand watering basically. And so I don't want to put the infrastructure into my plants yet because we're still doing craft cannabis. When you automate something and start running emitters to your plants, you lose that craft cannabis piece because again, microclimates, some plants are going to get more water than others, some aren't going to get enough, and unless you're going and checking them all like we are, and we have the capabilities of doing that, that's kind of why we're doing it. So we do a lot of science and research with the aquaponics. We will go into the fish room and pump out the fish waste. So I'll tell you how the system works actually.
Please.
So you go into our fish farm and you can see some of the videos that I've posted online on our website, or not the website, on our Instagram or our LinkedIn. But yeah, you go into the fish room and we have 2 500-gallon tanks. And so the fish do their thing in there, they poop, and the poop goes into our bead filter and gets, it gets
Digested.
filtered out in there. The solid waste gets filtered out, and then the other stuff gets filtered again, and then goes into our reservoir. Once the nitrogen has changed over and it's no longer ammonia, I can go in and grab that waste now. Most of the solids are gone, but there's still a little bit in there, and I like that stuff. So I go in and I pump and agitate it all, so I'm getting all the good stuff off the sides. Pump it into our 55-gallon tanks, or barrels, sorry. And then I haul them down the hallway to cultivation and into the rooms, and we hand water them just like we do out of the tap. And so we were doing trials. We had 3 scientists on staff. At the time, we're in between science right now, scientists.
Right.
So they were, I had one specifically that was helping me set up the aquaponics research and development rooms. And so all the rooms that we monocrop, we do an aquaponics science study of some sort. And so that's either how often we're giving them the fish waste, whether it's every day, do we do it once a week? We're just trying to dial in what's working. We're sending away samples to the lab. We recently did the aquaponics virtual conference with Potentonics. And Tanner and our scientist Kara were on there talking about our studies over the last year. It's pretty cool stuff. We're working with some universities, hoping to get some of our stuff published. And mostly what we're doing is microbial research. So we're trying to study what microbes we're putting into our living soil. We're separating what's already in the living soil, the microbes, where we get our soil. We have a living soil company that we're working with, and that's Stepwell Soil. And so we get that input. And then we're adding our own microbial sauce, just as if we're making in-house microbial mass, but it's fish. And so it's different. And so we're able to We haven't been able to get into it too far because if you've seen any sort of science data on microbial, like it's an
Yeah.
insane amount of color graphing, and like there's just so much going on that it's overwhelming. But she was able to find, I don't know the names of them, but 2 different microbes that we're introducing from our fish waste into the living soil that's not in anything else. And
Okay.
so we're trying to like narrow that down and see what exactly those are doing. She's looked it up, and from what we can see, they're helping break down phosphorus so the plant can uptake it better.
Okay.
And so we are noticing bigger yields, but it's hard to say. It's just so early in. If anyone knows anything about science, it's the slowest thing ever when you're doing it for real. Because you can't do too many things in one experiment. You need to kind of do one and then do another thing and then do another thing.
Well, yeah, because if you're not separating, if you're doing too much, then how do you know which is or what's actually affecting what you need to do? And are you guys doing side by sides where this one is getting it and this one's not, so that
Right.
you have the changes?
Absolutely. We've done all sorts of, we've done probably, I want to say 8 or 10 different runs of different science. And that is like testing different soils with the fish water, testing, we've heat mapped both of our flower rooms. So we know exactly which parts of the room are getting the most light and have the biggest yield. We've done, yeah, we're just always giving her the science.
Well, and science is got to be precise. If you're not precise, then you're not doing science, right?
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
a little
so
bit boring, but my scientist, she was great. Like she just doesn't want me to do more than needs to be done in one,
one
in one
run.
run. Yeah, so that
Yeah.
we are getting the actual good, research, because we know that we're just changing one thing or
hmm Well, and that's one of the beauties of dealing with cannabis is because you're doing so many cycles, you can do multiple runs, and the science is able to progress that much quicker than like a crop farm where you're only doing one crop a year.
Mhm. And we're using the exact same genetic every time, and so that's also the validity is we're using the same 2 rooms and then the same strain repeatedly
Right.
to get the same, trying to make it as steady as possible.
hmm Now, is that the strain that you have in the picture behind you? You said, I believe that's an award-winning bud that you have behind you, young lady.
Yes, this is the Daily Grape Bud that was just featured in Fat Nugs magazine. This is
Cool.
one of the photos from that feature. One of the Canada's first Ganjier, Matt Jerome, actually, he was one of the judges at Grow Up Cannabis Cup,
hmm
which was the first legal cannabis cup of its time at Grow Up in Niagara this past September. And
Yep.
our Daily Grape won 3rd.
Fantastic. Are you coming to grow up in Edmonton? I
You bet.
know.
And she's entered again because that first one was just my very first run. We snuck her in, we got it in under the wire. This babe, her THC has gone up about 6%. So this one actually is
Sweet.
coming. And I'm not all about THC, but I'm always proud when I can make it go up. So, I mean, I'm reaching her potential right now. We got it as high as 32.7,
hmm
33.7, sorry. Really
Whoa.
high limonene on this one. The reason she won though is not because she's so beautiful, but she is very beautiful. She tastes and smells just like grapes. And I've
Okay.
never
Oh.
found a real grape. People say they have the real grape. They do not have the grape. This is the grape.
hmm Okay. And I'm gonna be there. I know Kevin's gonna be there. Leighton's gonna
Yes.
be there. You're gonna have to. Well, we're gonna have to get some of that down here because I want to try that to
Yeah,
actually taste that grape.
it's I just entered it in the cup for this year. It's running a little bit different this year. So the people of Alberta are going to get to try it. So if this Daily Grape makes it in the finals, which I'm confident it will, they're releasing a SKU in Alberta for every finalist in the cup. So you can go and purchase it at any retail store and you can decide for yourself. You won't know which one's which, I don't think, but you'll be able to chime in. If it
Well,
tastes like grape, you know it's mine. Even in a pre-roll, I can taste it.
well, that's fantastic. I think that what they're doing now, opening it up across Canada like that, is really important
Oh, it
for
was across Canada
everybody.
last year too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, it's across Canada, just like how the States is doing it, you know? It's not
Mhm.
as like, pizzazz as like Emerald Cup or High Times Cannabis Cup, but like, we're getting in on it. And legalization only happened in 2018, and so I'm proud of us.
Well, and that's good because we're proud of you and what you've been able to accomplish. Like you've started out as a social worker, you moved into growing with chemicals, now you went into organics and now into using aquaponics. You just keep progressing. So where do you think you guys are going next with all this?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I always say, I used to move around a lot, facility to facility, because for me, it's different. Like, I am 44 years old. I've already had my career, like, yeah, this is my career, but this is the second half of my life. And I'm
Mhm.
only doing things I want to and only doing things that challenge me, only doing things that are fun, really. So as soon as it's not fun anymore, I'm out because you know what? I can work anywhere in Canada. I'm
Yeah.
so mobile, never mind in cannabis, but I got skills to pay the bills, so I can fall back on anything. So
Mhm.
this job here, I'm staying because I feel invested. This is the first place I feel invested. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this facility.
Right.
Tanner will even say, "This is my farm." The cultivation part, like these are my plants, like, and I will
Yeah.
never get that anywhere else at any other facility. It's just too corporate out there, and I felt, I felt like I had done something wrong before this, and I was like jumping from social work into this from nonprofit business, which can be shady, but to full business. And I'm naive and I'm an innocent woman, and I'm never going to change that about myself. I'm
Good.
not going to ever become a hard bitch. I can stand up for myself, no problem. I have a background in social work. I worked in the inner city of Edmonton. I am not scared of anything, but I
Mhm.
am not going to be mean or terrible or lie about shit. And there's not many people like me in this industry. So there are people here, but it's getting
Mhm.
hard because those people are leaving
Yeah.
because it's hard. It's hard in here. So I was at the point where I was like, this is not fun. This corporate cannabis business is not for me. These people don't even like weed. Like, there's no passion here.
Yeah.
To moving across the entire country to find that passion again. And I
Yeah.
found it here. So even on
Cool.
my worst day here, it's better than my best day out there.
And just to point this comment out to you, Silly Lily says, "Girl, you don't look your age. I thought you were late 20s."
Dang, thanks. I stay young because I work with the youth of today. Before I was working with the youth in Edmonton, helping them with life skills. And now I'm working with the youth of cannabis. So my secondary passion in this industry and the reason I stay, I worked my way from grunt to the top, is
Mhm.
to mentor. And it's to mentor the young people. It's to mentor them that they can be kind and passionate and lead and be assertive and not get walked over. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to teach. So every single place I've gone to, I've had a young man at my wing, and I love showing them the ropes. I love teaching them, or young women too, when they come into my space or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just like, even in here with topicals and the other things that are going on, you're just surrounded by young people, and it keeps me young. But it also serves that need inside of me to mentor people.
Yeah.
I love to teach.
And that's one of the joys of life, is being able to share what you're doing, and I can hear the passion in your voice when you talk about it. It's truly wonderful that you're willing and able to take those people under your wing, to share them and to guide them in the right direction. That's just, how do I say it? A passion that everybody should have.
Mm-hmm. There's people out there too, and I've met them mostly out here, out east. The nicest
Mm-hmm.
people in cannabis live on the east coast of Canada. I swear to God, there's some niceys out there. Like there's you, and there's some crews out west. But it's when I'm dealing with master growers on the east side of Canada versus the west side of Canada, it's
Mm-hmm.
an extreme difference. I am respected out here. It doesn't matter that I'm a woman or that I've only been growing for 8 years or whatever, right? Out there, I'm competing against these bros that have been growing for 30 years and
Yeah.
they don't respect me. They don't listen to me. They don't even look at me. And I see the difference, and that's why I'll stay out east.
Well, it's a lot younger of an industry down east than it is in BC. They, the old legacy market in BC, it's a lot of it is the old boys club.
Yeah, it's
And
difficult to break in.
yeah.
And I understand that. And I don't want to either. That's the other part, is that is not for me. When I go to these events, I see it very, very much in my face that this is not what I want. I want to be at my farm and I want to be cultivating plants. I want to be at the micros and helping them. I want to be making connections in sales and
Mhm.
media out here, or other teachers like Av. Like, um, I have a different purpose.
Well, and a different perspective, because you've been out west here. I don't know how Alberta compares to BC, but I think a lot of the BC boys came into Alberta when we started legalizing here. But down east, it's such a fresh and new, and you're allowed to take newer approaches as well.
Yeah,
Like, it's special, getting into like Stewart Farms, where you've started there and you've created something with the group that you have there, and your leadership is something that is taking them all to the next level. And that's a beautiful thing, because they can move out and take the knowledge that you're sharing and giving to them and create their own things. And I agree with you
that's what I
100%,
want.
is the micro grows. We
Yeah.
need more of the micros.
Yeah. Tanner and myself, and now I have my second helping out as well.
Hmm.
We are partnered with 5 right now. And
Hmm.
so I don't know how much people know about micro facilities and licensing, but it's easy to get the cultivation licensing. Not easy, but easier than it would be to also get a processing license. And so they often partner with LPs like us,
Yeah.
to do all of that part. And so there's a lot of different options out there, but we're in for sort of Atlantic domination. So we're trying to help out the little guys out here. So the ones that maybe don't have, things are tight everywhere, I'm sure, but we're trying to partner up with people that want to move forward together as a team, win-wins type stuff. So really, if there's any micros out there that are looking for a processor or a partner, reach out.
Oh, bonus. Yeah. So what's really working in your facility, other than like doing the fish and that? What are some of the other things that are truly working inside of what you're doing?
Um, as far as cultivation or the entire facility?
The entire facility.
Yeah, so more on the other side of things,
Hmm.
Stewart Farms is really popular out west for their topical products or bath products. So if you
Mm.
haven't heard about our bath bombs, I'd be surprised. They're pretty popular. The number one bath product in BC, which is huge. And so most of the staff that work here are for that. Like we have, oh man, I post pictures, or you can go onto my Instagram or Stewart Farms Instagram and see our production team. Like they are the hardest working people I have ever met. I thought I was going to bring the Alberta hustle to New Brunswick. I was fucking wrong. Like these people will outwork me all day long, and I work hard. So I'm just so proud of this small team. When I started, I think we had, I don't know, 23 staff, including the leadership team. And now I think we're close to 40, just
Hmm.
because we need the extra help because we're growing so fast. And that's definitely not the weed part. I always say Katrina, who's the COO, Katrina Jackson, who's also my best friend and life
Yeah.
partner right now. I live on her land. Um, I always say her topicals, because these are all her designs and recipes, her topicals that she's producing is funding all my weed projects, because I was lucky enough to come over here and do pheno hunting and genetics for really just the first year and a bit that I came here. And there's no money
Yeah.
in that. Everyone who's been in weed knows like you need to
Yeah.
monocrop or you're not going to make any money. So now we're monocropping, but with a little flavor.
Well, if you've got the flavor is behind you and you're bringing it out here, like how many people have that true flavor that they have and are continually growing it,
Hmm.
you know, that's a rare thing.
Yeah, our crops are very healthy. I'm very much most of the facilities I've worked in, it's plant health hasn't always been top of mind. It's usually yield and THC, right?
Yeah.
And to do that, people stress them out like fucking crazy sometimes, and it's terrible to watch. But I get on lots of strains plus 30 constantly, and none
Hmm.
of my plants are stressed out in a bad way. Yes, we do some plant stressing, but from clone all the way up to harvest, they are dialed in. We follow the momentum and pot upping. We like I said, we hand water, so we feed them exactly what they need every day,
Yeah.
so it's very much craft cannabis here. So even
So,
monocropping, you're still getting really great
mhm.
quality.
So you're saying you're stressing them, then how are you stressing them? Are you doing water stress, light stress, temperature stress? How are you stressing your plants?
Right now, our main stress is dry down. So at the end of harvest,
Hmm.
so just really working on dialing in the appropriate dry downs, and
Right.
also stressing them out a little bit at the end with like temperature, bringing things right down.
Hmm.
I've done a lot of super cropping. I've done the lab test. It doesn't make any difference. It makes the plant look really cool, but it doesn't do anything for THC or yield. Just so
Yeah.
you know, I've done the science, real science. Um,
Okay. Good.
plant stress to just some light stress. We just actually got a new flower room up and running here. I just finished it. Just got my first batch of Royal Kush in there. We got brand new lights. We're trialing Alias versus Grandmaster level
Okay. All
LED.
LED.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
top quality lights with the red infrared.
Right.
And I'm already seeing fantastic results in there. So I will be using that room to do mostly any sort of light stress or anything like that. So we haven't really done anything like that yet because we didn't really have the intensity. But we
Right.
do now. And
Yep.
so I'm using the tarantulas, Grandmaster level. Like the boys, my two guys will never.
Hmm.
I bought the Method 7 glasses when I got here, and they just don't need them, right? They don't need them in our grow rooms. As soon as we put these new lights in, they were like, we're glasses. And
I
they were
know
all
you
like
bought them.
20%. I was like, I have your glasses. You weren't using them, so they're in my locker. So I gave them back their glasses, and that's how bright that room is.
Well, and I don't know if you've gotten John Burfello's book because he talks about the DLI that you actually need because you can overdrive your plants, and then of course
Yeah.
you need to feed your plants higher with LEDs and what they used to use in HPS and everything. But that technology of understanding how light interacts with your cannabis plant
Mhm.
is something a lot of growers haven't really grasped yet, and you're doing a lot of research on that now.
Yeah, we're really wanting to dial in, and we're just starting with CO2 here. We hadn't used CO2. I've used CO2 in all the other places, but we're just
Right.
adding it now. So we're already like when I got here, we've doubled our yields without CO2.
Nice.
Just I came in and under Kevin's direction, got on in and quality first, quality first, quality first. Because
Yeah.
this place was a shit show when I got here. The plants were like, ah, like I was like, ah, like it was, I was baptized by fire. But like we slowly dialed it in and got things under control. And there's not one gross leaf here. You won't see any purple stems, like, so.
Well, and that just tells, anybody that's listening to this podcast, the quality of master grower that you are and how you've been able to walk into a literal shit show and now it's smelling like roses or
Yeah.
good cannabis.
Good cannabis. Yes, 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 yes. We have her dialed in. So we've taken the yields from, 30 grams per plant to now we're doing 60 plus, and we're just going to get bigger now with CO2.
Nice.
So we're going to add the
Yeah.
CO2. We worked on our plant density. Like it's just doom. We're taking it slow, but we're having it right in. And so I'm excited. I'm just finishing up SOPs for CO2, and we should have that pumping through our veins pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, I know that one of the things that was lacking in my grow was the CO2, and I was getting hollow core in my stalks.
Ooh.
And actually, Tony, Mr. Toad, is the one that told me, well, you didn't have enough CO2. I thought it was actually a good thing, a vein opening up to suck moisture in, and it's like, whoops.
Like a super highway. I've seen those before.
Yeah. Well, like I don't have that much experience growing. That's where I rely on other people for knowledge, like Kevin and Tony and John Burfello, etc., that I've been following for a long time to teach me this stuff. And now, if I have questions, I can always call you because you've taken it to a next level. But Indica, I wanted to know what brand of lights you're using. You say you've transferred into the Alias. Which ones? Because they've got a whole bunch of different ones.
So right now we mostly use Vivid Grow. So if you're looking at most of my lights, that's when I got here. That's the ones they had. They're very good lights, actually. They're, I think they're a knockoff of the Fluence, when Fluence was pretty popular a couple of years ago. Maybe they still are. I've worked with Fluence. These Vivid Grow are very similar. I would definitely recommend. And now I use Grandmaster level lights at home. So I had already trialed out the Master Bloom and the Tarantula and saw amazing things. They're waterproof. The plants can grow right up to them. They don't get hot, like so many great things. And so he was able to give us a really good deal. And so I got 4 Master Blooms and 4 Tarantulas. And then because I got 3rd place in that Cannabis Cup, I won those Alias lights. And so those are Alias Matrix. They are actually 2019 refurbished lights. But Alias has recently reached out because they saw my Grandmaster level lights and they want to upgrade me. So they're going to send me their very best lights, I guess, end of April. They weren't able to get them to me for this light trial right now, but their Matrix are doing pretty good. I can see the difference though in the power. We're keeping all the par the same. I have a par meter, Poji par meter, and so we're all the lights are different in the way that we can dim them and stuff, but all the par is the same across the board. And our architect, we have an architect that is also the co-founder here. He's designed the way the lights go up on the ceiling so that it's a fair analysis. And so everything is done very particular with lots of detail. And so we'll be able to have the results of this first run anyways in a few months.
Okay, so what other challenges are you guys facing in the grow right now or in moving forward?
Money. We need money. We need investors. Because that's it. Like these lights we're testing are so that we know what to purchase when we go into the next phase of our facility. And so that would be 3 new double-sized flower rooms, vertical. And so right now, because we're pumping so much money into just like, this is how I picture it anyways. Tanner might be like, no, but like, we're staying afloat. We're not bad, but we're not, you can't really like get ahead without like automation. And so there's that, like, do you make that jump? And like, it's just, there's a lot of that going on. So we could use some capital, people who believe in us. Want to stay quiet though.
And not try to control everything.
Right, because I've been in facilities like that too, where it's like, oh, well, the silent partner, like investor or whatever, is like doesn't know anything about weed, but he's like telling me what to do or telling,
Yeah.
telling this person how they want things done, and it doesn't make sense. And like, so I understand the stuff that comes with that. We have Katrina too, who's always sourcing out like grant money and funding and things like that through the province and
Yeah.
probably Canada. So there's ways, but yeah, I think it's like that for everyone right now. Is just
Hmm.
the cannabis industry was like really rich at first, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of investment money, and then there's a lot of bad decisions made. I was part of a bunch of startups, so I know. And then no one wants to give out the money anymore because it's risky.
Well, yeah, but and the thing is, like, you're the government money, because you're into the aquaponics side of it as well, and doing the scientific research. You guys are much more able to get research grants than your normal micro grows, because of how you're approaching it. And I know when we were talking earlier, or actually a couple of days ago, you mentioned that when investors do walk through, they generally get a fish feed at the end.
Yeah. Who doesn't love to feed fish? It's fun. They're so cute. I was just in there singing to them this morning. They come right over because they want food. Probably not because they love me more than anyone else. But
I gotta
I like
ask,
to
what
picture
song were you singing them?
we were singing Let It Go, because I was trying to release some anger this morning. And so I usually come in first thing and collect the fish poop. And so while I'm letting the hose pumping, I'm over there being like, do you guys miss me? I'll see you soon, or singing them a song, spinning around. There's a lot of space in there to do some
Hmm.
dancing. And so I actually haven't done a dancing reel in there yet, but I should.
Well, I know I watched the one where, it wasn't your how did you put it? It was a full moon and somebody left me alone. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was a cute
it happens a
video.
lot. It happens a lot.
And just to guys, if anybody wants to watch that, there's her Instagram. It's on her Instagram. It was fantastic. I really loved it.
I just like to do whatever genuinely feels good. So I'm a pretty inconsistent poster, but like some days you'll get a couple in a day. Some days you'll have to wait 5 days, but like it's genuine.
Yeah, yeah. So we're coming close to the hour, and there's one question that I try to ask at the end of every show. And what would you have to say to the youth of today about the passion it takes to find their path in life?
I like this question.
Work with
Man,
you.
the youth of today. I'm going to think about those youth right now. Those youth of today, I see them. I want
Mhm.
them to know that they shouldn't wait to find their passion within. They should do what feels good right now. And that doesn't mean avoid all your responsibilities and go have fun. There's a fine balance. If you're not
Mhm.
ready to be able to balance your fine responsibilities with fun, then you're not ready to find your passion within. But I just don't think anyone should wait. I think
Yeah.
I used to, I waited. I waited too long. I just was like stuck for too long. And so I just want them to get out there and just own this world. Don't be noodles. I've met too many young people that are noodly, and I want there to be less noodle people out there and more kind, assertive souls. Like, get out there, lead shit, do shit. Don't sit at home and wait. Get out there, grow weed, try something. If you fail, so what? Learn from it, get up, do something else, do it again. Just keep doing it. Just keep going. Get up, get out of bed, go do it.
Oh, and that's fantastic, because I think that's a lot of the problem is they're stuck in their basements and they
They're in
don't
their
go out
beds.
and do anything.
Yeah, noodles. I know.
Yeah.
You can not be a noodle. You just got to choose to. People sometimes think they are powerless. I'm here to tell you, you have the power to change your life, whether you're 20 years old or you're 40 years old, also sitting in your basement, doing what I was doing, stuck. No, maybe not you exactly, but if you're a woman out there that's like, nursing or in social work and you're dead end, you're burnt out and you have a passion for like crocheting, go fucking do it. The world is your oyster, man. You can do anything online right now. I mentor people across the world. Go get your hustle on anytime.
Okay, so if somebody wants to reach out and get mentored, is your Instagram the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, usually through the DMs, just reach out. Instagram is funny. Like, I'm still an old lady in certain ways where I don't exactly know everything. I know how to work the things I need to work. And so messages, like, I learned that if you're not friends, they go into like this weird folder that you don't know about. So like, I go and check that folder sometimes, but I always respond. Just takes some time. But yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me, just randomly.
And Stewart Farms Life, that's your guys' website?
Yeah, it just had an upgrade, so bear with the bumps. We're working through it, but it looks great. It looks beautiful. But that will give you a lot of information about what we're doing.
Well, you have been an absolutely amazing guest. Your journey in life has been phenomenal. You've come so many different directions, and your path and your passions are really shining through in what you're doing now. And I truly thank you for coming on and sharing your life and your experiences with the people of the world. For who knows how many people are going to end up watching this video and they can truly learn from you. So I really appreciate your time.
Oh, hi. Thank you so much. I am so glad to be here. I wanted to do this show. I'm excited. I didn't know about it before, but once I saw it, I was like, yes. I'm very choosy about the podcast I pick up because I'm so busy that my energy, I have to save it for me. And so I'm very glad I did this. I had such a fun time. Thank you.
And you got to get your boss to reach out,
I already told him he is already excited. I said, I will hook you guys up. He loves podcasts. And I said, Tanner, this isn't like a sales podcast. Like, you can actually go on and talk about your passion and why you're doing what you're doing. And I think he was silent for like a minute. And he was like, yes, thank you.
Because most people, this isn't a normal type of podcast, because I'm not a normal type of crazy Canadian. Okay, what can I say?
Yeah, no, this is great.
Well, as Silly Lily says, thank you, Genevieve. And I almost pronounced your name wrong. It's like,
that's okay. I go by Genevieve.
And I'd be the next one you'd be singing to the fish about, because you'd be mad at me.
No, I don't get mad easily. You got me smiling today, Ken.
Well, you brought a smile to my face, and I'm sure most of our audience that has watched this is smiling as well, because you're such a wondrous person.
Thanks so much. Let's do it again sometime.
Oh, don't tempt me on that.
And I'll see you in May when I win.
Well, hey, and I'm going to be there. Av Singh has got me suckered into doing something there. I'm not sure exactly what, but he's such a nice man. He says, oh, yeah, just show up. I got something for you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. Now I have a new friend. That's awesome.
Okay. Well, with that, do you have events or anything coming up locally that people could hook up with you at?
There's nothing that I have going on. I'm just kind of laying low, doing my own self for the next few months, and then I'll probably start hitting the events. My first event will be Grow Up in Edmonton.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'll have more info by then for sure. But yeah, just for now, I'll just be doing my thing here at the farm, laying low, hanging with my plants.
And making topicals and bath bombs and sending them out to, everybody, right?
Exactly. Smoke that dank weed. Actually, I just entered a second cup in New Brunswick, so that will hit New Brunswickers. So if we have any New Brunswickers, go out, buy the cup package and vote for us.
Well, right on. And they'll know you from the flavor of the weed. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll know which one it is because it's great.
Okay, and to the audience, we've got 2 shows tomorrow, both with the Meehan family out of Maine. We've got Dennis Meehan, and then we've got his older sister Megan coming on. So those are both on tomorrow. And then, of course, we've got Josh and Kelly from Dragonfly Earth Medicine on Monday on the Soil Matters. And who can ever forget the OG's Power Hour with Tony and John? So that's what I've got coming up. So with that, guys, I'm going to hit the end broadcast button, and you guys have a most wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and share. You know, this is a wild interview. Let everybody see it, okay?
Yeah.
With that, guys, we'll see you later.